know, and I think you get an alert that says recording is in progress, and if you want to continue or not, that's your choice. But we will record it, and it will be posted up on the district website, along with other resources from today's meeting, this PowerPoint that I'm going to be sharing with you, and also a resource list of equipment that might be appropriate for a hybrid meeting. So that was the goal for today. Wanted to begin to look at some things that could make hosting a hybrid meeting a little bit easier for us and give us an opportunity to kind of get some equipment and some other things together. But before we get started, just to kind of poll the room and see what's going on with people. In fact, while I say that, I am going to pull that over to here and stop the share for a minute. How many people have had some kind of an experience with a hybrid meeting? If you could just do a show of hands. So I see Cindy, Christina, Ken. So there's a few. How's it been going? Challenges, thoughts, Cindy?
I was at the Lakes installation the other night, and they have purchased equipment to be able to do the hybrid, and it was great. They have a member who moved to Florida. He was a part of the whole thing. It was very nicely done. And then I've been at Novi's meetings when they've done the hybrid, as have you, and that works, I think, okay, don't you, Christina?
Yeah, I was gonna say that we're still working on adapting it and everything. It works pretty well for everybody who's on Zoom. We cut the meeting just a couple minutes short so they don't have to watch us eat. But for our members in person, we're still working a little kink out, but it does work well. I know a lot of our members who aren't able to leave work still do enjoy that opportunity to still be involved and hear the updates.
That's good. Yeah, I think Kat at Novi was kind of one of the early adopters, but she was out under a pavilion in Novi with her cell phone kind of shooting around for people like, hey, we got and I think we've come a ways since the kind of shooting from the cell phone and looking at others, although a cell phone can be a part of the overall hybrid strategy. So other comments or thoughts from folks? Checking the little boxes. If not, we can get started and take a look at some of the information. Just to let you know, some of this information that I have has come from a number of other districts, and including our zone. Also tapped and touched base with Toastmasters International, who's a partner with Rotary for training and other ideas, and kind of got the best of all worlds as we're putting together information for things that could, help us run our hybrid meetings. So well, there we go. First guide had an error. Yay! Forgot to take out the subhead. It's there in the Greek. Those of you who do design work know that the Greek kind of fills space holding, so I had a holder there. But first, to really understand the idea of what is a hybrid meeting. And when we talk about it, a hybrid meeting really should combine the benefits of live and virtual interactions. And both audiences, those that are live and in person and those that are joining virtually, should feel connected to the meeting, should feel that they're actively participating in the meeting itself. So that hybrid happens when there's that intersection between the in-person and the virtual or the online people. In Rotary, we've been using Zoom, and it's been working out well for us. There are others. There's GoToMeeting. There's other kinds of meeting platforms that are available. But whatever you choose, it's really looking at making sure that the virtual and in-person attendees both feel the same experience from the meeting itself. So those key experience areas that we look at and we want to talk about really kind of fall into, that hybrid meeting is if the online person can hear the participants both in the room and virtually, and the in-room and online can both share that kind of experience. So the areas that we need to really be considering are audio. How do people hear each other? In small meetings, we might not need to mic the participants in the room, but we do need a microphone to be able to have that sound carry to the virtual meeting attendees. So those that are attending online, lighting makes a difference. I think we've all seen the person in the dark shadow and not be able to see them completely online. Important that if a speaker is speaking and all we see is kind of this dark shadow, the online experience is diminished because they really can't see that speaker. The quality of the video or videos that you might share are things that we need to think about. We know that we can use a cell phone camera, we can use a laptop camera, but sometimes it's best to add a camera, so a camera separate that will bring in a better view of the room and also of the speaker. The environment comes into play, and when I talked about doing some research and looking at others, one Toastmaster put up a video of how to run a hybrid meeting. And it was interesting because as the presenter was in front of the camera telling everyone how to do things, there was someone in the background who was kind of walking back and forth, brought something up, dropped it on the desk, picked something else up, went up the stairs, came down the stairs, and it was like, who is that person? And when you think about the environment, it's not only what people in the room can see, but what people online can see. And it should be clean, it should be crisp, there shouldn't be a lot of distractions going on as those different kinds of things are happening. Also in the hybrid meeting experience, and I mentioned, Krista, that kind of early with Kat and Novi with their cell phone, you know, we talk about stabilization and what that picture looks like for the online viewer. And when it's all of these kinds of things happening rather quickly, that stabilization could get very disconcerting and hard to watch for someone online. And I tell people I have vertigo, and it's something I've dealt with for quite a few years, but what happens for me is if I spin very quickly, I get a little bit dizzy and a little bit out of sorts. And sometimes people will pan a room very quickly with a camera, and that same kind of motion happens. And so it's important to, as people are watching their screens, that we're avoiding those kinds of interruptions or distractions, and that view is very stable for the online viewer. And the last thing to really talk about in the hybrid experience is the whole idea of engagement. And how do we engage people who are in the room face to face with us and engage the people who are joining us online? And sometimes we tend to focus because they're there for the people who are in the room. And it's looking for purposeful ways to set up a meeting that includes both the people who are in the room face to face with us and those that are joining us online. So those are some of the key areas in the experiences that we talk about that can really make the difference in a hybrid meeting. So I know Rotary has a lot of protocols and we look at a lot of different kinds of things, but there are also a lot of opportunities that we have that we can engage both of our audiences. And it could start as early as registration. So at your registration desk for your people who are coming in person, if that person also has the Zoom meeting up and greets and welcomes the online participants at the same time. So your registration person is doing kind of that dual duty. They're looking at the people who are joining us online, but they're also paying attention to the people who are joining us in person. We could split announcements between just make that assignment between people who are online and in person. Someone could lead the Pledge of Allegiance remotely in the virtual world for everyone in the meeting. Share the song, the invocation, all of those things can happen either in person or online. And it's important to share those tasks amongst the meeting participants. A lot of times we look at happy bucks or lucky bucks. I know that we have event groups set up for the district where people can simply pledge their happy dollars. It goes right to the district funds, and that's something to kind of consider is how do you collect those happy or lucky bucks from people who are remote so that they feel they have that opportunity to participate as well. Sharing the four-way test, who's going to lead that, who's going to do the different things. I think a couple of you have mentioned that the whole idea of maybe having the speaker before the meal, which again changes the way that we've normally kind of set up our meeting. But if we have the speaker who engages us before the meal, then anyone who is online who might not be eating at that particular time could drop off the call, or they could just have that time for fellowship to talk and chat with the people who are actually in the room. So it's not your typical Rotary meeting. I selected the picture there to kind of reemphasize that typically we have, you can see the plates on the table while the speaker is speaking. Typically we eat and then we have the speaker. And that might not be the best way to do it if we're setting up that hybrid meeting for people to join us. Any thoughts or questions at this point? Things that might be of interest? Let me stop sharing for a minute and see what you have.
Karen?
Yes.
So just a quick question then. The people that are there in the meeting are just watching the screen, and they're seeing sort of the same that the virtual people would see?
Yeah, basically, if you have the gallery view up right now, this view would be projected into the room so that the people who are in person would be seeing everyone who's on the call. And so they would see all of the people. And so when the screen shares as well, when I want to show the PowerPoint, you know, you get that band or just the speaker view in the top corner, but then they can see the PowerPoints as well. So that screen share works for the people who are in person, but it also projects that PowerPoint to the people who are online. Al.
Okay, so given the current situation where we're supposed to be going back to normal, if you will, is hybrid meetings really necessary? I mean, are people doing it, or is it just a temporary stopgap right now? Or should we just move into full in-person meetings?
You know, it's interesting, and the reason that we're looking at hybrid meetings is that even though, you know, we have that in Michigan, we're fully open. In Canada, we're still locked in, correct? My Canadian folks, yeah, I'm seeing heads nod that they're still not able to. But what we're hearing back from a lot of people is that the Zoom meetings have become a way for people to connect. So if you're meeting in person, but someone got caught up at work, but they could join you online, it's an advantage. If someone's traveling, they can check into the meeting. It offers a lot of different opportunities. And also keeping open the Zoom link and having it set up that way opens the opportunities for speakers. Because instead of a speaker having to come to the meeting and be there in person, your speaker can present from a remote location and still reach the meeting. So there's a lot of advantages. And really, it's like once people got the taste of Zoom, they kind of like it. And some kind of will still be worried even when things open up completely of whether they want to engage or come into the meeting. So it offers opportunities for people to still participate.
Hi, Karen.
Yes, Susan.
Yes, we have a number of members in the Ann Arbor Club that are 90 years old and older. And one of them recently said, I sure hope you're going to keep doing Zoom even when you're back in person, because I can no longer drive. You know, sometimes I can get a ride, but not always. And that will allow me to continue to be at the meetings via Zoom. And we hear the same thing from our members who are still working, and as you said, and maybe can't get away, you know, don't have the time to drive to the meeting, but can still tune in. And then we had a number of people that go away either in the winter or the summer to cottages and other places in other states, and Zoom allowed them to keep meeting with us, and they were very thankful for that. So I think we've seen enough other reasons that we're really wanting to give the hybrid a real chance, and probably continue it maybe forever. I don't know.
You know, once people got used to it or got a taste of it, that's what they want. Rose, go ahead. Mute. There you are.
Yeah, I'm trying to unmute myself. I like the idea of the hybrid because we have some younger families that are working and with the kids' activities and everything else. And I think, serve to change lives right now. I think it gives them an opportunity that we can get the children involved in some of the meetings, of them doing the 4-way tasks, you know, when they're older. I think it's just a great thing all the way around to continue with the hybrid.
Good. You know, does that help, Al? Lots of people kind of giving you ideas as to why maybe we want to continue it.
No, I just wanted to hear what everybody else is doing. I mean, our attendance is actually up using Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I guess really what everybody's saying is you're doing this not because of the COVID concerns, maybe, but you're really doing it because it's a new tool for keeping members informed of what's going on at
Yep.
your club. What it sounds like.
Absolutely. Good observation. Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about the challenges that we'd have when we're going to be leading a hybrid meeting. And some things that you might do when you lead the meeting is to open up with just an explanation of what the setup is. You know, hey, hi, we're here, we're hybrid today. You know, for those of you who are here in person, there's a microphone in the center of the room. So make sure, you know, if you have a question, you project to that microphone. Where, you know, you can say that we're recording. You can set the rules, you know, raise your hand if you want to talk, avoid side conversations, you know, whatever the rules might be, setting that up. Again, that going to reiterate it 100 times today, include everyone. So you want to make sure that as you're leading that hybrid meeting, that you're not simply focusing on the faces that are live and in person in front of you, that you are often referring to the people who are on the Zoom call who are joining us virtually. The big trick is to be ready and prepared when something goes wrong. I think if you're on the call earlier, you heard me mention that I had John White set up as a co-host for this meeting. So in case I lose everything, there's someone who can still host and move things forward. So what, you know, anticipating what can go wrong and be prepared to kind of respond to that quickly. I've been on Zoom calls where my internet has just stopped. My power blinked off, it came back on. It was like, everyone's gone. So coming back in, logging back on, how does that meeting continue and what's going to happen with it? So that idea of multiple hosts and other things can make a difference for the meeting and what's going to happen. I'll tell you, hybrid, you know, in-person meetings are probably easy. Hybrid meetings have a lot of technical challenges that come up with them, including challenges with the internet, with video, and with sound. I kind of wanted to run through each of those for you and kind of give you some ideas and some food for thought for these. But internet challenges include bandwidth, and bandwidth can affect in the room and also the virtual guests, those that are joining us on Zoom. And bandwidth really has to do with how much is being pushed through the internet from any particular location at any particular time. And we know sometimes the bandwidth kind of gets chopped up. So if I'm projecting 20 people on a Zoom call, I'm using up bandwidth. If I want to show a video on top of that, I'm using up bandwidth as it's moving forward. So it's something to think about as you're preparing for your meeting. There's also the challenge between wired and wireless. If you have an opportunity at any of your meeting locations to be hardwired into the internet, you probably have an advantage over wireless. In wireless, if you do go wireless, how close you are to the local access point can make a difference for you. Same holds true with the hotspot. Some people rely on their cell phones to create that hotspot for them. I don't know about you, but I lose cell connection in different locations. If the building is a cinder block building and I go into it, I'm probably not going to get the best cell reception, which also means my hotspot's not going to be all that strong as well. So things to continue. As I said, the number of simultaneous connections that are going on. If you consider if you're running a hybrid meeting, as the meeting host, you might have 3 or 4 connections to the Zoom meeting in that room alone. So in person, if I said my registration, I would like them to be on Zoom so they could meet and greet people. I'm going to have one running as the host. My co-host in the room will also have a Zoom connection running. Might put one up also for the speaker. So maybe on a laptop, the speaker can see people who are virtual as well. So all those simultaneous connections chop up bandwidth and can have an impact. Also, internet challenges is to look at, I don't know if you've ever had that panic that happens when your computer wants to update, right? And mine has, for some reason, saying update now. It's like, no, please don't do that. But those become challenges because sometimes our computers get forced information from a provider or from the support of the tech. And we want to make sure that we have all of the latest security updates and everything installed on the computer before we begin the meeting itself. There's also video challenges of making sure that both in-person and online guests can see everything that's happening to create that in-room experience for those who are joining us virtually. There's also challenges that when we begin to screen share, recommendation is to always have a full slide deck prepared with videos and everything by the host so that things can move through smoothly. So you're not stop sharing with one person, starting sharing with another, stop sharing, stop sharing, because it takes up time and it becomes sometimes an issue, especially if the person who's trying to share has the video and they forget to optimize for video or share sound. You know, then you have all those technical issues where you start going back and looking at different things. A video challenge is also on presenter location, where they're going to be. Are they going to be in the room or they're going to be online? And each of those pose different challenges to create that meeting room experience. Other video challenges include operator load, and we're calling the person who is hosting or co-hosting the meeting an operator of the equipment, the sound, the video, everything else that's happening when screens are shared, highlighting speakers. You know, on this particular view, I could go in and highlight or spotlight a speaker, which will change the view that people begin to see. So if you're going to highlight those speakers or put the spotlight on a speaker, take that spotlight off for the next speaker, those different kinds of things, those all happen. Oh, sorry, my slide went backwards. Those all happen on the operator, those that are running the meeting itself. And then there's the gallery and speaker view and how that presents remotely. Encourage people to look at a side-by-side view from this particular broadcast to give a different view for the people who are joining you online in the virtual world. In sound challenges, the onboard laptop microphone might not be enough to pick up the whole room. If you use an auxiliary camera, a webcam with it, they often have a microphone with them that helps boost that sound quality. But there's also considerations for background noise, what's happening in the background. I attend an outside church service on Sunday, which is in the landing area for a small private airport. And it is broadcast on Zoom as well. And we often have to pause while planes are flying overhead to be able to make sure that everyone can hear what's happening. But to be aware of the background noise and what's happening is important. Audio clips within the presentation, you want to make sure that you've optimized the sound, that you've shared the sound on your Zoom computer. Also look at sometimes if the bandwidth is stretched, there's a delay. I often talk about off on the lip sync because people will be talking on a video, but the sound will be a little bit off from it. So you want to look at that and try and optimize as much as you can. Have any of you experienced an echo when you try and set it up? You have too many speakers, too many microphones coming through a device into the room itself. So you want to make sure that you turn off the sound on other equipment in the room so that there's only one speaker system in the room itself. And then in some of the meetings, I know in Ann Arbor, when they get back to their larger meetings, some have meeting rooms that have in-room sound systems that you can plug into, which you can bring a microphones and do other things to. And we'll be looking at that in a little bit itself. But from that standpoint, just looking at those internet video and sound challenges, anyone have experience or difficulties that they've had over time with their connections? Questions? Okay, just wanted to do that check-in and take a look at those different kinds of things. So at this point, I wanted to kind of dive into equipment needs and then talk about different room setup needs that you might have and look at different ways of setting up a room for a hybrid meeting. So back to screen share. So when we look at that idea of equipment needs, the photograph here has a projector, if you can see it, a laptop setup, there's an auxiliary camera setup, a microphone, all of that to help the meeting in the hybrid sense. When we talk about setting up a webcam, we know that on your laptop you have a camera, but the webcam might be the camera that you focus into the room, or you focus on the speaker and you turn a laptop to look into the room, but some kind of camera that could catch and look into different areas. So if you're setting up a webcam, looking at a webcam that has a 1080p resolution that can autofocus, so you're not kind of concentrating on that. It's nice, some of the Logitech have a zoom capability, so from the laptop that it's hooked to, you can zoom in on different things. And then it's tripod ready, because we're getting into that stabilization idea. So what I have suggested on here is a Logitech C920, a Microsoft LifeCam, and a Logitech BBC 950, which is a conference in the center of the room kind of a camera. Looking at different price points, the Logitech and the Microsoft LifeCam, about $10 difference between them, but do some really great things. Logitech has others that maybe a little bit higher in the price point that can do those kinds of things that you would like them to do. The BCC 950, if you look at it, it actually can remote control and turn into who's speaking and who's talking. So if you have a group setting and people are participating in conversations, someone doesn't have to go and kind of turn a camera to them. The Logitech will, you can swing that around and look at it from different perspectives. So different ways to set up, again, the size of the room, active participation, sharing the people who are in the room with the people who are online can make a difference for them. Again, for stabilization, always look at that idea of a tripod. If you are going to use a cell phone and move through the room, always suggest that you mount that cell phone. This one I'm looking at as a shoulder pad, but it gives you stability in your wrist so that you can hold the buttons and do the different kinds of things without a lot of moving around, holding the cell phone in your hand and doing some things with it. The shoulder pad will also mount to a tripod. So if you're walking around the room before the meeting, sharing who's in the room with those who are online, you have that opportunity, but then you also have the ability to put the camera down at a particular point in time and maybe focus it on the speaker or someone else in the room itself. So the lightweight MIDI tripod will do that. It'll mount a camera or a cell phone that you can walk through the room or turn into the room, but give you that ability. Looking at a tabletop tripod versus a large stand-up tripod, I'm always trying to find ways to make the equipment move in as easy as possible so that you're not lugging around the big tripod and the big case and everything else. The nice thing about the lightweight mini tripod is that when you close the legs together, you can still hold it up. It, much like the shoulder pod, you can have the camera locked onto something as you're showing the in-person view to people online. So things to look at when you're looking to set up a tripod with the camera itself. Microphones, when we talk about adding a microphone into a room, we're talking about looking at a conference microphone that's omnidirectional. It means it'll pick up all the way around it. There's some things on here that I put are kind of technical, but as you look at that microphone, the sampling itself is the high and the low tones, and these are kind of recommended high and low tones that it should be picking up at. And also the response, which is how fast it records and picks up the sound itself. The response rate is something to consider. So as you're shopping for different microphones, they go in a variety of price points. The more money you pay, the higher, the better the sampling, and the better the response. But there's a sweet medium range that is perfectly fine for the Zoom in-person hybrid meeting. So I'm suggesting 3 different models to take a look at. The MXL, the Samsung, and the Tonar. And they all basically look, they're wired, they're going to sit on a table, they're going to be toward the front of the room or midway into the audience. And what they're going to do is help pick up that sound. Now, the challenge comes is that when you put a microphone to pick up the sound in the room becomes important. So chair scraping, you know, plates passing, everything else also gets picked up on the microphone. So the operator who's looking at the sound itself might want to turn that microphone off at certain points so that that background noise isn't that apparent within the room itself. Again, looking at 3 different price points on here, the Tonar, if you look at the top of it, it has a button that you can turn it on and off right from that microphone as opposed to having to go to the computer. Some people like that, just kind of quick and easy. You can shut that microphone off quickly right at the microphone itself. Another key component that is to look at, and it's interesting because a lot of the information that I was looking at never really talked about projectors, but they all assumed that the projector was going to be in the room or it was provided by someone. We know a lot of clubs need a projector because that's the one key component. They're not meeting somewhere that provides a projector, so they need a projector on their own. And for specifications, we're looking at 3,000 plus lumens, and that's simply how bright the bulb is. And the brighter the bulb, the projection that comes from that is brighter on the screen. So anything under really 2,000 lumens, and some of those small portable projectors that you see only run under 900 lumens. And what that really means is that you have to shut down the lights in the room in order to be able to see the screen. So 3,000 above is a really good entry level on a projection system. It will do really good in a lighted room. Probably will have a problem if there's a big window with sunlight hitting your screen. It won't compete with the sun, but it will do a really good job without having to dim the lights in a room. And also looking at that, above 3,000, I mean, the next break above that really gets into the 5,000 and above, and those are the projectors that run for thousands of dollars. At this 3,000 level, you really are looking at, I think these are both rated at 3,600 or 3,800. You're looking at a price point of just about 3.5. So for the ViewSonic, $360, and for the Epson, $330. Personal choice, I like the Epson. It's a little sleeker, it's a little more compact. The ViewSonic is a bigger machine, but you know, again, it's where you want to be able to move equipment and how easy it is to move the various equipment that you see in the room. And again, both of these will do a really good job of projecting in a medium to somewhat large, not, you know, I think in Ann Arbor, when you're in that big of a room, you probably might need a little bigger projector, but for the most part, these will do a really great job in meeting rooms. Also recommend that you have speakers, because those that are in the room need to be able to hear the people who are online, and the speakers help project that sound out for them. So there's basic speakers that you can get USB powered. They just plug into one of the computers that you're using. And this is what, $21 for a nice pair of small compact speakers that can do that. There are larger speakers that are still within this price point, about $30, $35, with the ability to do volume control right at the speaker itself. But a good basic set of computer speakers will help out a lot in your meeting and in your meeting room. those of you who would need a screen, how many of you remember the old roll-up kind of screens that you had, and you had to get that thing up? And yeah, okay. They were always, I always fought with them. It was always felt like I was going 3 rounds with the screen before I could get the silly thing set up. And it was, you know, really kind of something happening at that point. This particular screen is available on Amazon, the portable projector screen. It projects to 80 inches, which is a really nice size for a medium, small and medium meeting. Could probably also work in a little bit larger meeting space as well. But the tripod and the back support on this particular screen all collapse together, and the screen itself rolls up, and then you simply unroll the screen and click it in the 4 corners, and you have your screen ready to go. So first, it's smaller, it's lighter, it's more portable, and it makes it easier for that person who has to schlep equipment back and forth. It makes that setup a little bit easier for people as they come into it. So if you need a screen, look for one that can set up in this fashion as opposed to those roll-ups. But I'm not opposed to just shooting on a wall. Most walls in some of the meetings, if you have an open blank wall, the difficulty comes if the wall is painted. Sometimes a white, ivory, or beige will work. But if it's a bright yellow, people's skin tones then will reflect that yellow. And you know, obviously, if it's other colors, you're going to pick up those as well. So the need for a screen is going to depend on the room that you're in. And if you need one, it's nice to have one that can be set up relatively easily within the room itself. Bink, bink. So at this point, let me just stop and say questions or thoughts, comments. Doing okay with all of this? Al, mute.
Okay, so on the microphone, do you find it better to have the microphone like a Bluetooth on the speaker? Or are you saying you just put a microphone like on the table and hope that it picks up all the conversations?
If the microphone is a conference style microphone like the ones that I was showing you, setting it out on the table picks up in an omnidirectional and will pull in all the sound from, so if someone had a commented in the room, they would pick up through the microphone. If for the speaker, either in front of a laptop, so they have their own camera on them, or using one of the webcams, which would have a microphone to focus on them. So if there's a speaker in the room, you want to use either the webcam with the microphone or the laptop with the microphone to pick up the speaker. But again, we're trying to create that experience that's going to have people who are joining us online feel as if they're connected into the room. And an important part of that is that they're able to hear everything that's going on. And so that speaker that can pick up people asking questions or making comments, or you know, even the person who's doing the announcements or leading the pledge, that they're all being able to be heard both in the room and online. Make sense? Okay. Okay. Other thoughts or questions? Now, this list of equipment that I have, I will be posting after the meeting. You know, it'll be on the website. So I'll give you some links to be able to get to that as we move forward, to be able to kind of connect in with that information, okay? So I'll give you a link to the PowerPoint itself, and once you link to the PowerPoint, you can get the other links and also the information. So we'll have that all available to you, okay? Others? All right. So wanted to kind of go on and look at the ideas of what it looks like when you set up your meeting itself and what's involved in that particular setup. Basically, we're looking at a simple setup, no local presentations or videos. There's no PowerPoint, there's no videos to be shown, it's just a meeting. And we're seeing people both online and in person. There's a host laptop that is basically the streaming feed. That's the one linked to the Zoom, that's hosting the Zoom meeting, that's sending the information out. That computer needs the remote mic, the webcam, and the internet hooked up to it. And if there's a possibility of having a podium mic powered by a PA system or a powered speaker, that helps bring that sound forward. So how we hook everything up and set things up so that we're able to hear everyone and the microphones and everything are working for people. So that's a basic setup. Again, this one is looking at the idea that there's no presentations, no video, so it's streaming only. There's the basic with local presentations or video, which adds a little bit to the operator. And remember, we talked about the operator load and what that individual running the Zoom meeting needs to handle when they're presenting that meeting in hybrid. So that host laptop is also streaming and doing the live feed. So they have the remote mic, the webcam, the internet hooked up to it. They have audio out to a powered speaker system, those speakers that we showed, so that this comes from the computer to that power speaker system. But in this one, we're also hooking up a projector. So from that host laptop, we're also linking to a projector, either VGA or HDMI out to that projector so that everyone can see what's happening. Important to make sure that you have all your pre-meeting slides set up, that host is going to host the Zoom meeting, that you're able to operate that webcam. If it does have Zoom on the webcam, you know how to operate the Zoom on it. You want all the speaker slides, videos, and everything ahead of the meeting so that it can become seamlessly incorporated and move through. And when you're not sharing a screen, you want to switch to a speaker view, mute all the participants, obviously, and try and manage the chat that's happening at the same time. So lots of moving parts, and this would be a basic with one operator running everything in the Zoom meeting. So again, when we talk about the load or the operator load, it's how much that individual is on the host laptop. In the intermediate setup would have 2 computers, 2 laptops working, and one is just the streaming feed. It has the webcam and the internet. It hosts the Zoom meeting, it operates the webcam, it works to spotlight participants so that the presenters are in focus and spotlighted when they're presenting. They're going to mute and unmute participants, and they're going to manage the chat. The second operator is going to be doing all of the live feeds. So this person's computer is the one that's going to be hooked up to the projector. They're going to have all of the presentations and videos running through that particular computer. They're also going to have the audio out for the computer to the speaker system, and they'll also need to be hooked up to the internet, obviously, to keep things moving forward. So again, this is on a 2-person setup, and sometimes it's the easier way to do it so that one person isn't managing everything that's happening at any particular given time, but it does require 2 people to operate the equipment. And there is some advantage to have someone just simply manage the participants, to mute and unmute those participants, manage the chat, the questions that might come in on the chat, and operate the webcam. So looking at that as you're looking at how you're going to set up your meetings, keep in mind how what kind of volunteers you can have, who you can maybe assign to do the local streaming feed and the live feed both for that particular hybrid meeting. It can go up from here for larger meetings and get a little bit more complicated, and the advanced is still running off of 2 computers with 2 operators, but we're adding kind of digital webcam instead, but that first computer is still hosting the meeting, operating the camera, spotlighting presenters, muting and unmuting participants, and managing the chat. The second operator is now looking at maybe a wireless receiver on the speaker so that their comments can be picked up a little bit more clearly, a podium mic, which would all go into a mixer. And we'll talk about mixers, both audio and video mixers, in a little bit. But that goes into the powered speaker system. It all runs off of a laptop, and then of course goes to the projector. So the thing that we're adding at this point is advancing in the sound itself and having two operators. The mixer itself is that ability to better control the sound in the room and better able to control what's being picked up as we move through the room. Mixers that we talk about, the sound mixers themselves, and it is a little bit advanced. There is a video in the resources at the end of this particular PowerPoint that talk about setting up the technology for a small meeting and setting up the technology for a large meeting. And a large meeting is the one that's going to be talking about using an audio mixer. The one that's recommended is relatively inexpensive. It's $80. It's an 8-channel mixer. It means you can control 8 different sound sources as you move forward. And the other one, especially if you have a lot of videos and a lot of different PowerPoints and what you're going to be presenting, is a Stream Deck. And it's the Stream Deck Mini. These come a lot larger with more keys, but 6 keys should be more than enough for a meeting. If you think about each one of those keys, one key would have a video queued up. One key would have a PowerPoint queued. And so you can use each of those keys to bring different information forward. And the advantage is, instead of having to switch between them on the computer, they're all preset through this, and then you simply just push buttons to bring up the next presentation that you want. The buttons are all programmable, so they can change for every meeting, but it gives you that opportunity to kind of seamlessly stream the information out to an audience. So throwing those, both of those are at an $80 price point, and both of those are for what I would say are very large meetings that have a lot of moving parts, a lot of presentations, a lot of videos, and a lot of other information that can go along with them. Okay, that wasn't the button I wanted to push. I wanted to push this one, giving y'all back for a minute so I can see you. So questions or thoughts about the different equipment?
Karen, I just wanted to add one more thing. This is Bala from Troy Rotary. Excellent presentation. What we have done at Troy Rotary is the one that Karen was talking about, the second laptop. We've used a iPad or any mobile device that you want, you can use. And the nice part about the iPad is it has a larger screen, and it's easily taken from table to table, focus on the speaker or focus on the audience, whatever. The nice part is also picks up the audio very easily, so we don't need any additional audio devices, and the images are very sharp. And if you're in an outdoor setting, it's known to kind of create its own automatic resolution. So that has worked very well.
And that's a good point that Bala makes, is that that secondary mic doesn't necessarily need to be a separate microphone. It can be on another device. So if you are using your cell phone to kind of do the view of the live audience that also has a microphone on it that can pick up information, or as Bala indicated, a tablet can also do the same thing. Some people turn a laptop toward the audience. Again, it has the microphone on it that can pick up that information. I think the important takeaway is, how do we make sure that the audience that's joining us online has the ability to hear very clearly everything that's happening in the room, and that the people in the room have the ability to hear what's happening and what's being shared from the people who are online. So you do need speakers in the room, and you do need a good microphone in the room to have that kind of sharing and mutual experience happen for both groups of people. Other thoughts or comments? Again, the list that I have are just recommendations, looking at some of the specifications for information. Obviously, there's different price points on them, but again, trying to make sure that you have looking at those technology requirements. And I'm just looking at the chat. John had just put out, does anyone know of a club in the district that is conducting hybrid meetings that use the high-end technology and techniques? And Krista, you indicated Novi. Can you share a little bit about your setup?
Yeah, so we have a computer set up for Kat or whoever our speaker is, so that way you can see them, you can hear their microphone and everything. We also have another computer set up with a webcam as well as a projector and screen, so that way everybody in person can see who's on Zoom, and everybody on Zoom can see the entire room if there's any questions or comments or anything being added from the greater membership. And then our screen is projected both through the computer so that way everybody on Zoom can see, as well as on the screen so that way everybody in person can. Right now, Kat and I are working on trying to figure out a little better way. The only thing that we're running into right now is just if there's questions popping up in the chat, she only has one screen to view. So Karen talking about having like a second person on to maybe manage that is something that we're looking into.
Good. So it sounds like you have that nice intermediate setup going for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When does the club meet?
Thursdays at
Thursdays at noon?
Yeah.
Okay. And one thing that I do, I pull out participants and I pull out the chat. You can pop them out and I have them running separate. Now I do run on two screens, but if I'm only running on one screen, I make the gallery view 3/4 of my screen, and then I run the two on the side of that. So the chat is always visible to me. I don't have to wait for it to kind of pop up and it goes away and it does other things. I put it off to the side so that as I want to check it, I can look at it. I can also check who's here. So if I need to spotlight a particular speaker, my participants are already pulled out. I can find that speaker and put the spotlight on them relatively quickly. So Christina, one thing that I would suggest is that one of the operators pull the chat out and then you can always have that visible and not have to worry about it. So participants in chat, I could probably show you my other screen.
I know right now what we are doing, since she is just working off of one screen and she is our sole operator at this time, everybody in person has the gallery view up. So anytime that we see a chat pop up, we'll have people say, hey, there's somebody on chat, so that way she can switch over. So that way it keeps everybody who's in person interactive right now as well. But like you mentioned earlier, having a second operator is what we're looking at right now.
So if I showed you, well, I can actually, let me do it on here. Give me 1/2 of a second and I'll set up what my screen would look like if I were on my own on a single computer. I'm going to try and block a few other things out of here. So let me share this. But this is how I would usually look at. So I can still see everyone. I can see what's going on with them. But then I also have, as you can see, I've pulled out the chat so that as I'm looking at everyone on the screen, I can still see these things and they kind of stand up for me and I know that that's what's going on within it. So it makes it a little bit more top of mind. So the person who's monitoring chat can always have that kind of set up. And as I said, and then if I wanted to go ahead and spotlight anyone, I'd click on the more and I can spotlight for everyone. I could pin that person so I always see them. I can do all those different kinds of things, but my participant list is up there. And as a host or co-host, I have that ability to look at these optional, the more kind of thing that can happen with it. So it makes it a clean way of being able to keep that at the forefront, because I know sometimes I'll be watching something and I'll just see the message come up or the messages come in really fast and I can't follow them all when they just hit the bottom of the screen. In this way, I can always scroll through them and be able to see the chat and know what's happening. So if I'm responsible for it, this is the way I usually set it up so I can always make sure I see what's going on with that.
Karen, I wanted to add one other thing.
Yes.
I'm sure many of the clubs, you're also, as we continue into summer, either you already have your meetings outdoors in parks or other community areas. One of the things we found at Troy Rotary is having a hybrid meeting and outside, it's a great challenge to overcome. The only thing is we need to make sure we have, for example, one of our members, he's really a technical genius. He put these drop cloths to cover. In fact, he's so good, he predicts where the sun comes because he goes the previous day or the 2 or 3 days before at the same time when our club meets and knows the direction of the sun, make sure covers at least about, I would say 150 degrees of the area. And then on top of that, the second thing is, and Karen experienced, we all experienced this first time when Karen is our club, the club banner, which is right behind the speaker. This is what I call the fifth dimension, because we never took the wind speed into the design. So, and wind speed, you never know, like a day like this or in this next week, there's two things, rain and wind speed. We need to make sure that the banner is not fluttering here and there. And that's kind of an annoying thing for the, especially people on this Zoom, it's, and even the people in the in person. So that's something we need to make sure the banner is properly, you know, hooked onto the back of the whatever you're, you know, hanging on to. And then the last thing on the outdoor characteristics are the screen. The screen has to be positioned about a foot away from the drop cloth I mentioned, because you want to capture, like Christina mentioned, you want to capture, even though you're outdoor, who are on Zoom or slides or both, so that way the audience in person are engaged and they're able to see the people on Zoom. So it's a really a nice interactive way to do it, whether it's inside or outside, hybrid, wind, sunshine, and everything else.
Good. And that screen position is important. I think when we have a PowerPoint presentation, we always kind of think of that screen as kind of behind the speaker and off to the back. And really for a hybrid meeting, you want that screen to be closer to the audience. You know, even if you have the speaker here and the screen is off to the side of the speaker, it's closer to the audience. It doesn't necessarily have to be behind and off the shoulder of the speaker. And by bringing it closer to the audience, you're really engaging them a little bit better with the people who are online, because they're obviously closer to them and they can see them just a little bit better. So think about screen placement as well. It doesn't need to be tucked all the way back. It can be closer to the audience itself. Does that make sense? What do we have? Could you include a screenshot of your layout with a single screen? Okay, you can only see my background when I was screen sharing.
Yeah, I couldn't see anything for Zoom or anything. I just saw your like computer background.
Okay. It should have showed up when I shared. I'm going to display these over the top right now, and then you tell me what you can see at this point. You know what? I'm going to give you a different screen and kind of look at it. This one's not going to have the Zoom people on it, but I think I know what happens, because when I screen share on my background, it kind of goes away. So let's take a look at this one. Can you see what I have set up here?
Yeah, the PowerPoint and the Word document.
Yep. But normally this screen would have the Zoom participants in it. When I screen share, all you guys go away and you become a small box. And I think that's what happened on the last one. So if you imagine my Zoom participants were all on this side of the screen over here, what I do on these pullouts is that I can then just set them up so that I could always refer to them. If I'm not really concerned too much about participants, I can make either one of these bigger. But I have that ability just to have the chat pulled out so that that becomes top of mind when I'm looking at it. Okay. If any of you have ever, you know, when you're screen sharing, you end up with a column of people rather than the whole screen that you're normally looking at. That was the one thing that really kind of bothered me when I first started looking at the screen share itself, because I don't see what the audience sees, which is a little disconcerting. So it's kind of trusting in faith that what I'm showing on my my slideshow or my video is actually being broadcast to others. In some meetings, I'll set up my cell phone. I'll do my cell phone on Zoom, so I have that in front of me as I'm looking at everything. I can still see what you guys are seeing, because what I see when I'm sharing is quite different. So sometimes with those two computer setups, you have that ability to glance at the other computer to see what's happening, because the computer that's handling the stream itself is going to have a different look to it than the one that is actually being viewed by people on Zoom itself. That one always threw me for a loop. The first time I did it, I go, where'd everyone go? What happened to the people? And they're not there anymore. And it was, you know, think about that as it's happening. So we good at this point? I just wanted to kind of go through some best practices at this point and take a look in some of the information that we can see and talk about. I think I already mentioned that you want to make sure that you secure all of the videos and the slides before the meeting so that you can run them all together. And I'd also say, if you notice when I stop screen sharing, I advance to my next slide so that when you come back, I'm not kind of going between slide to slide. Some people say when you stop screen sharing between one presentation and another, put a blank slide up or put your logo slide up or something, so that if you do come back to it, they see the logo slide and then you move on, but a way of differentiating and breaking up the information. It just gives you the quality assurance that the slides are going to work, everything's going to be there, so when you begin the meeting itself, everything's there. Set up the meeting and open it with all participants muted. You can, sometimes they say so they cannot unmute, depending on the meeting itself. I think in Rotary, we like just people to come in and chat. And then there's an option at a certain point in time.
We lost you, Karen. I think Karen froze.
I think so.
Yeah, I don't have any audio from her either, or video now.
Hey, Christina, I might try to come to your Novi meeting.
Yeah, we have all of our details on our website.
Yep, I just saw it. I live in Brighton, so I can get to you fairly easy.
Okay.
And I would love to see how you guys have it set up, because you sound like you're zooming forth into the tech stuff pretty well.
Yeah, we're very lucky at Suburban Showplace. They provide a lot of the equipment for us. So there's only some that we have to provide. And then we just merged the two. So we did get very lucky in that aspect.
That's great. I'll let your club know if I'm going to head your way, because I might like to get there early and kind of have you walk me through what you've got going on there.
Yeah, definitely. Kat is our president right now, Kat Dooley. So feel free to reach out to her or myself.
Okay.
I have a question for you, Christina.
Yeah.
I can see the advantages of having a hybrid meeting for sure, but do you find that members take advantage of being able to stay home and do it via Zoom rather than come in person to the meeting?
So for our club, everybody who Zooms in, which at times is myself, prior to COVID, I was traveling for work, and now I schedule meetings when my accounts are available. So there's times that I even Zoom in because I can't travel to the meeting, have the hour-long meeting, and then travel home. So I haven't found that any of our members are taking advantage of it in a sense of they could be there in person and are choosing not to. All of our members are using it as an opportunity of either they could be hybrid via Zoom, or they wouldn't be there at all.
Okay, thanks. I just have a club that just loves to eat, and they have to have a meal at every meeting. And I'm just afraid, I'm not afraid, but I was wondering, like, if we started losing members because they stay home, if that would kind of ruin the meal aspect of it.
So Ron.
Yes.
For our club, we definitely have members that are very traditional in the sense of we get together, we have lunch, we have our protocols, and then we have other members that have come in during COVID who are only used to meeting via Zoom. So for us, it's an easy way to kind of meet in the middle. So what we do, we encourage all of our members to come in person, but if they're not able to join in person, Zoom is their alternative option, so that way they can still be involved, is how we phrase it to our membership.
I could see it
So
as a
Ron,
big advantage. Sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead.
no, I was going to say, you brought up an excellent point about, whether people will use this as an excuse to not come to the meeting in person. I think there is a great value in the statement you make because, one, the alternatives are, and Christina touched upon this as well, some of them may not show up at all. But more important for us as a membership retention strategy, what we've found and experienced is initially, since people are kind of migrating from Zoom to in-person, and some people continuing to be on Zoom, at least they're engaged to a certain extent. May not be fully the way we want them to. But I think the value there is when they see more and more people in person and see the value of the networking, then I think even the people, unless it's related to the work or they're out of town or anything like that, then they will continue to be on Zoom. Otherwise, I think we will find more and more people will migrate from the Zoom to in-person. But now that we have the Zoom platform or any other virtual platform anyone is using, completely tested out with hybrid and all the simple technologies, that provides us a great way to continue to get to engage our members, and more important, how it can help us in our membership retention strategy. And now that we have all this excellent training and everything, and I think Cindy is also on the line, she's our next year's trainer, and with Christina on the social media, I think next year will be even a greater year as we use these technologies and make it more of a utility than just a technology.
Good, thank you. And thanks for carrying on while I lost the meeting for a minute. One of those, be prepared for what's going to happen and how to get back online. So I was just ready to fire up my hotspot when my internet decided it was going to kick back in. So thanks for carrying on. It sounds like you had a great conversation. Appreciate that. Just had a couple of things wanted to kind of finish up with, and then we'll have a little bit more time to chat and share some ideas. I had, and it was interesting because I said open the meeting 1 hour before live meeting opens, and that for me is to start the computer at least an hour before you're going to begin. So if there are any issues on, if there's going to go through an upgrade or systems or whatever it might be, you're open, but it also gives you an opportunity to preview your slide deck. It's going to give you an opportunity to look at a lot of things on a technical side before people actually show up. You can see that on mine, it has Rotary 6380. I do have an option to rename myself, and I could either call myself host or I could put my name in there. But just so people would know what computer we were feeding from, especially if you're using two different computers, one might be host, one might be presentation, so we know where we're looking for information on different computers. So rename the computers so that you're sure of what's happening with them. I could put host and my name on it. But important things to consider as you're looking for different screens and for different information. Also encourage you to disconnect audio on all but one device to avoid the feedback. So if I am using two computers, I will disconnect audio on one of them so it's not going to feedback through the system itself, and keep only one microphone open at a time so that you're able to kind of feed that information as it moves forward in a way that makes sense. Get all the presenters connected and set co-hosts with ability to unmute themselves. So again, you can make your presenter a co-host and they have that ability to unmute. This comes in especially if you've set up your parameters that everyone comes into the meeting muted and they don't get to unmute unless you help them do that. So you want to make sure that your presenters are able to unmute. You want to check out presenters, especially if they're remote. You want them in the meeting early so you can check their sound and their video quality and lighting, everything that's going on behind them. So you're making sure that what you're presenting both in the room and online are clear and crisp for everyone, and that experience is enhanced for everyone. You want to check out the sound on the AV laptop, the podium and the wireless mics, make sure all the sound is working, the projector is working, dry run the slides, make sure they're all popping up. I don't know if you've ever had, I teach at Eastern Michigan University, and my students will often, part of their requirements is to send in a PowerPoint that they'll be using with the speech that they're presenting. And sometimes people use the font that's not native to my computer, and it does really weird things when I open up that PowerPoint. So you kind of want to run through them and make sure that everything looks good and that it's working up. Always a good idea either to set up a chat so that they can have a private chat with you, but also maybe a telephone number, especially if you have a remote presenter, so you can give a call should there be an issue that arises. You want to have another way to be able to contact them in those just in case moments. And when everyone and everything is ready, you can open up the waiting room and admit all from waiting. If you do have a waiting room, in this meeting, we just had a participant ID, so you could come right into the room. But you want to make sure that you're ready to be greeting your guests. You know, generally, if you're having an in-person meeting, you'd like things set up before everyone shows up. So just kind of think about what it looks like as you're going through that setup process itself. And again, the goal is to make the meeting experience, both virtually and in person, as enjoyable and pleasant as possible. So you want to make sure that you're doing things that connect on both levels. When we talk about screen sharing and the best practices, again, avoid swapping screens. So I have to stop sharing, and then Renee will then look at her computer and begin sharing, and you have that kind of lag time in between them. If remote presenters are using slides, you know, they could be run locally, and they would just be voicing over their presentation. It would be then the operator on site who would be advancing slides for them. Virtual and live audiences will see the slides from the AV laptop screen, so the presenter can kind of follow along with what's happening. And sometimes there's a long break in the slides themselves, not a long break, but a long discussion about a particular slide. And if there's a lot of information when we're talking about screen share best practice, it's always a good idea to stop sharing so that the presenter becomes the focus rather than the slide. I've already covered the information on the slide that I had presented about screen share best practice. So now I want to kind of focus and talk with the audiences about that. So I'm going to shut off the screen share so I can see everyone and we can share that in real time rather than kind of having that kind of lag and just seeing the slide all the time. So do those ideas make sense? Do they resonate a little bit? You know, a lot of it's like putting on a show. How do you put your, you know, how do you make it really work well for both audiences and have both audiences considered at all times as we move forward with things? So again, at this point, questions, thoughts, and/or comments?
Hey, Karen, before we get into questions, I wanted to say that the slide deck and the training you took us through, I think it's one of the best of the best. I think it can be used for everyone at the club, and even share it to the zone and anybody else in the world. I think some of us take this for granted, but the way you put this together, a 101 or 201, and walk through the step-by-step and also the architecture, what picture is worth 1,000 words, I think so. Thank you very much for spending so much time. I know in a 1 hour meeting, you spent several hours just putting the slides together and going through and making sure it's simple and easy to follow. So thank you so much for doing that, Karen. Great job.
Oh, I appreciate those kind words. And, you know, it is my pleasure. I think that, you know, technology is going to be our go forward way of doing things. And the better we can get at it, the more we're going to be able to engage our members. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. Wanted to talk a little bit next about the technology grants. The district I've asked the district to set aside $8,000 in technology grants. And we're making up to $500 available to clubs to be used for the hardware, for a projector, for a webcam, for speakers, microphone, screen, those kinds of things. Some of you might have access to a projector at your meeting site, but need the webcam and speakers. So we say it's up to $500 that you can use, but we're going to ask that when you request the funds, you request what you want to purchase with the funds, and then we'll see that we can get the money to you. And again, it is up to $8,000. The technology that I put together in the package, if you looked at everything that I had there, totals about $520. That included the webcam, the projector, the speakers, the extra microphone, the screen, all of that. So it just is a little bit over the $500, but that's for a club that would need everything. Again, determining, and that's not including the computer, obviously, but looking at, where you're at with your club, what's going on with it, and what kind of extra things you might need. So if you already have a projector, great. If you just need the speakers or whatever it might be, know that there's technology that are available. I only have 8 that are carved out. So then the request for serve, ask for what you need. Also encourage you, if you can, share with a sister club that's close by. If you meet on Wednesday and they meet on Thursday, maybe that equipment can go between a couple of clubs. So different kinds of things to think about. I know some clubs are sharing a Zoom package right now that, their club meets on Monday and another club meets on Wednesday and one meets on Friday. Well, you don't need Zoom 5 days a week. You just need it on your meeting day. So different ways of approaching it. But the technology grants are to buy the hardware to be able to do the meeting setups that are important for us to really do quality hybrid meetings. When you go to the resources on here, and I will make available the list of equipment, but I'll also make a list of these videos. And this is out of District 5950. Tom Thumb is in my class as a governor, and he really put together some really great things working with the zone and also working with Rotary for some things. So there's Going Hybrid is their original training video. They have a lot of district related stuff to begin with, kind of fast forward to that till they get into the meat and bones. But then they also have 2 videos. One is Going Hybrid, Small Meeting Hybrid Tech Setup, and one is Large Meeting Hybrid Tech Setup. Small meeting is looking at that smaller intermediate level, and the large meeting brings in the sound mixer and looks at it on a little bit more advanced level. There's also additional videos. It's actually a guy from Austria, which is interesting. He's a comedian, but he's a Toastmaster and he does some different things. So there's some videos there. There's also a hybrid meeting technology guide, setup tips, and the buying guide, which I'm going to have to replace because I just created a new one on it. No, the actual list. And then of course this PowerPoint will be up there in a little bit as well. So be able to get all of these resources to you to be able to have you move forward. So outside of that, if there are any questions at all, be happy to field them. Questions, comments, thoughts?
Karen, there is one
Sue,
question on the
Susan.
chat.
Okay, what is the deadline for applying? No real deadline for applications, Susan, but just as the money runs out, the money is going to run out. So if you think
The sooner you know and can apply.
the sooner you know and can put it together, the better off. So
Okay, and who do we send the request to?
to me,
Okay.
K Gabrys 6380@gmail.com.
I think
Karen, this
Jen
is
working
Jenny
on it.
Sproul from Lake Orion. Is the grant limited only to the equipment you listed, or can we purchase other brands?
You can purchase other brands if you wanted. What I wanted to do was to see how far that $500 would go. So I really began to look for the best equipment in the room that I could think of that would fall into, and like I said, I didn't quite meet the mark. I hit about 520 when I added everything up, but looking to kind of get that, if someone needed everything, what could I recommend that would be of a good quality that could put you into that package? So,
Thank you.
but if there's
I
other
found a
things that
few
you have,
products that are, I found a few products that for our space are a little bit
Mhm.
smaller, so we might not need all of the things, so they might suit us better. So I just wanted to make sure that we could get those smaller size type things.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
great, thank you.
you know, and just caution you, I know there's a lot of really small projectors, and a lot of people think, oh, these are really cool. It's the size of my cell phone and it's a projector, but you have to dim the lights completely in order for anyone to see it. So, you know, just kind of putting those kind of specifications out there that you want to get the best for the dollars that you have to spend when you're looking at it. Okay. Renee.
Yeah, so could we ask for the full $500 to buy a complete package, or does our club have to have money into the game as well, like a usual district grant?
$500 for the technology. So if you need the complete package, you can go ahead and do that. Although I'm going to tell you it's not going to cover the complete package, and this didn't figure in shipping or anything else. And almost all of these were on Amazon. I think everything that I looked at had an Amazon. So Amazon Prime if you have it with no shipping, but you know, there's still a couple of vendors on Amazon that are going to charge shipping and then the taxes and other things. So again, trying to get as much as we can in there, and probably if you need the whole package, we'll probably need a little bit of club dollars to help you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Karen, I want to add, talking about the club dollars, the finance committee earlier this year was looking at not billing for the club dues, or what I call it, the district dues that the club owed for the second half of this year. But then we decided that since the invoices had already gone out, a decision was made to not bill the clubs for next year first half. So what you really have is Karen has brought this technology funding for each club. Plus, since the club will not be billed for the dues for the first half of next year, so really the club has a combination of this technology funding and anything over the $500, the club won't be spending to pay the district dues. So really great opportunity to combine those two if needed, and go after a really integrated technology hybrid architecture. And again, it's not going to cost a lot. It's not going to cost an arm and a leg, but you have Karen's technology funding and the club dues that is not going to be sent back to the district.
So hopefully that will be able to cover people enough to, you know, get them started in a really great program. Other questions? Christina.
I just wanted to add too, in regards to the cost and everything, one of the things that Amazon does that's good for like all the clubs to know, if you have a foundation, so the nonprofit side of things, there is Amazon Smile that you can set up for your club. So if you're purchasing that equipment with some of your club dollars, part of the proceeds can go to your foundation, because Amazon Smile partners with nonprofits. So you could set it up for your foundation, so that way the money goes back. So even if, say, you're spending $20 on Amazon, I think it's 0.5% or something similar to that goes back to the nonprofit that you choose. So that is an option too, that even though, say, you're spending $20, you're getting part of that back.
Good to know. Thank you.
Along those lines, Christina, that's a great point. There may only be a few people here who actually take advantage of the Smile connection for their foundation, but all of the members in the district could, when they buy anything through Amazon, could sign up one or more of the clubs for the foundation payment, and a share of their money will go to that club. So yeah, if we can get a list of who those are, that would be great, Karen.
Okay.
Karen, let me know too if you need my help with that too, because I know it's something that I plan to bring up to Brenda this coming year as part of social media's program.
It's a great way to share, and a lot of people buy on Amazon, and you might as well have some money going back to something that's meaningful to us. So good point. Thank you. Other questions or thoughts or concerns? I just wanted to thank everyone for being on the call today, for kind of forging that brave new world that's out there in front of us. I've already started having conversations with people who have almost been referring to pre-COVID and post-COVID timeframes of things. Oh, and before COVID we did this, but now we're doing this, and we're kind of having that delineation. My governor year has been completely online. It's been a COVID year. And it's been interesting in watching each of the clubs develop their use of technology. Early on, at the end of last Rotary year, when Sparky was governor, there were still some clubs that were holding out. This whole thing's going to be over soon, and we don't have to get into that Zoom stuff. We're going to be okay, And kind of reluctantly, some kicking and screaming as we moved into my year. It was like, yeah, well, we're getting online now because that's where the meeting is going to be. But just, your patience, your understanding, your ability to kind of embrace the use of technology has been, I think, a real benefit. I hear more and more. I heard early in the meeting that many of you have said your participation is up on Zoom, right? When you were meeting face to face, you didn't quite have that many, but Zoom participation has been really good. And hopefully, if we do hybrid well, if we're able to do it in a way that the online person feels connected to the in-person meeting, we're going to have a real advantage in all of our clubs. But if we don't manage the hybrid meeting well, if the person who's joining us online feels like they're just an afterthought, they're just a face up on a screen, no one's paying any attention to them, they don't really have a part, a role, or are active at all in the meeting, we're not going to be successful. So as we develop our new protocols, as we said, include someone online to maybe do the invocation, have someone in person do something, you can have a person online introduce the speaker. There's all kinds of different ways to make sure that we're connecting and we're sharing the experience, our meeting experience, with our in-person and our online members, and to really make that a great rewarding experience for everyone. So hopefully the technology will help you do that. And hopefully, as we continue to move forward, we're going to be able to strengthen Rotary and connect with even more people as we continue to look at members and the great things that we're doing in each of our communities.
Karen, I want to add.
I did pull. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, as you indicated, one thing for sure, virtual meetings not only are here to stay, but also it affords us the opportunity, like we are doing in our club and other clubs as well. Speakers will be coming through maybe in person, maybe virtually, and that gives us a whole different quality of speakers that may or may not be able to come in person, maybe in a different country. So I think that's going to be a huge game changer for us when we continue to bring in quality speakers like we did the past year. But I want to leave everyone with, on behalf of all the people here and everyone else, Karen, we want to salute you and thank you for the great leadership you have provided to our district in spite of the pandemic, in spite of the challenges. I don't think there will be any other district governor that can say that they led this district and other district governors from your class, what great challenges you encountered and how you conquered them and still able to lead the district. So thank you.
Thank you very much again. I appreciate it. I did pull the participants list, so I will be sending out, give me an hour or so to pull it together, but I'll be emailing everyone the links to the PowerPoint because I have to get the recording done. So the recording will go up as well. So I'll send you a links list. I'll send you the suggested buying list and everything like that. And again, if you do want to look to buy some equipment for your club, you know, please just kind of outline what you plan to purchase and what the price is for it. We will ask for receipts after, but we'll get the money to you and then be able to get that happening for you, okay?
Thank you.
Thank
Karen.
you all.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
you.
much.
I'll hang around if anyone has a need to chat or talk about anything after, but I'll stay on till y'all disappear. So thanks again for joining us, and happy hybrid meetings.
Thank you.
And Phil, I hope everything's all right with you at home. I know we talked a little bit earlier about problems in basements and everything. I was worried in my own basement, but we're dry, which is a good thing. And I do owe you an email. I'll send you a link to a meeting for Monday, okay? Thanks, Phil.
Hey, Karen, thank you so much.
Thanks, Jenny. John, did you also record the meeting? Yes, okay.
Thanks, Karen.
Thanks, Rose.
Have a
Take
great
care.
year.
Bye-bye.
This was great today, Karen. Thank you very much for putting it together.
Thank you. Appreciate your help.
Of course. I'll be posting in just a minute a couple screenshots that I took. Is there anything that you want me to include?
No, just is it
The district group.
the group one? Yeah, just that grants are available and later today the video will be up and
Okay. I took a screenshot of the grants page, like the PowerPoint page. So I'll put that in with a screenshot of everybody participating.
Okay.
So I'll make a comment that more information will be posted and that'll be on our district website.
okay,
Okay.
great.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen. This was a big experience for me to try to do this in the car.
You did a wonderful job multitasking. Nice job. Thank you for joining us.
I'm not driving. I'm in the back seat. All right. Thank you. Be in touch. I do appreciate it.
All righty. Take care. Bye now.
Doctor. Bye-bye.
You said Dr. Maloney. My knee really hurts.
I'm gonna go ahead and end the meeting for all if there weren't anything else. Okay. Thanks.
Okay.